Welcome to Divine Feminine Rising with Mez Deline. I'm Mez Deline, and my intention with this podcast is to entertain, educate, and illuminate as I share the power and magic of the Divine Feminine. Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for your time and attention. Hello, my loves. Today I want to talk about a healing tool that I've been using for many years, and I thought I would tell you about it, and perhaps it might become a tool that you can use, and it's journaling. So I've been journaling probably most of my life. I am a writer, so I do like to write. I know that some people don't like to write, but let me tell you about the magic of technology. You can talk into your phone for your journal. I have Microsoft Word, and I can talk into that. There's a microphone with it now, and so you don't have to really write. You can just speak your words that you want to put down in your journal. And you might wonder, well, why a journal, right? Why would I write a journal? I don't like diaries. I don't like, writing down my daily life things. My life is boring or whatever, But it's not like a diary. A journal is not a diary. A journal is something where you write down what you're thinking and feeling. You might write down something that happened to you during the day, or write about something you're looking forward to. There's just so many things that you can write in a journal. So for me personally, I began journaling when I was, like an angsty teenager and had a lot of feelings that I couldn't really express outwardly. And I would write them in my journal. And I really, truly believe that when we have stuff inside of us that's hard to speak about, that maybe we don't want to speak about, writing them down is a way of releasing those words, right? Getting them out of our bodies and into the light, so that, especially if it's something that needs to be healed, so that the light can help heal. And by that I mean, when we hold stuff in, when we hold all those emotions and feelings inside and we never talk about them, we never express them, we don't let them out, we stuff them down, then that causes other problems. That can cause physical symptoms. It can cause physical illnesses. And so it's important to get those feelings out of you. The other thing it can do is it can just fester and those feelings of anger or sadness or lack of self-worth, whatever those feelings are, they just grow. They don't go away. It's almost like mushrooms in a cellar, right? You keep them down there in the dark and they grow. That's where they like to grow. And so it's kind of like our emotions in our gut. We keep them there, we hide them, we press them down, suppress them, keep the door locked on them, and they just continue to grow. So it's important to get those negative emotions out, those harmful emotions out. And so I'm an advocate of counseling, of seeking therapy. And if you're going through something where you really are having a super hard time, you might seek out a counselor. And I would recommend that. If you don't have the means, I highly recommend a journal. And as a start, nobody has to see your journal. People go, oh, I don't want anybody to see my journal. Well, keep the things in your phone and that people can't access, right? Or for me, it's a computer program. No one will know what it is because of what I've named it. And I write in my computer now. I have volumes of books that I wrote over the years that I, journaled in. And no one cares what I wrote. And I didn't, it's just my own feelings. And so don't worry about people finding it or whatever. If you worry about that, don't use names. I don't know, just journal. So what I do is I write down my feelings, and I write down things that happen. For instance, my journal helped me hone my intuition. And by that, I mean, so you might wonder what that means. And that is when something happened to me. For instance, when I was driving my car one night and I just had this strong message, stop now. It was late at night, it was out in the country. I don't know why I'm stopping in the middle of the road, but I do because it was a very strong thing that happened, like stop your car now. It wasn't really words, it was like a feeling, a strong feeling. And then I stopped my car. As I stopped my car, around the corner comes this car that was speeding really fast. And if I hadn't stopped when I did, and they swerved around me, they barely missed me, I would have been in a head-on collision and wouldn't have survived, I'm sure. And so I journaled that. I wrote that down. When somebody calls me, the phone rings, and I think, oh gosh, I haven't heard from so-and-so in a while, and I answer the phone and it's so-and-so, right? I write that down. Anything like that, I keep a record of, or I did for a long time, and it really helped me become conscious of my intuitive abilities, and I call it honing them, but really it was becoming conscious of them because they were already there, and I just wasn't that aware of them or that conscious of them. And it really is a strong ability that I have, and an important ability to be aware of. And so that's one thing I use my journal for. Another thing I used it for was, like I said, writing down my emotions. I was in a marriage that was not a good marriage, and I feel like my journal kind of saved my life. And I would write down my feelings, and one day I wrote something like, I can't stand this anymore. I feel like I'm trapped. I just want to escape. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I just can't stand this anymore. I just want to get out. And this was in reference to the marriage that I was in at the time. And as I wrote those words, and those weren't the exact words, they're just paraphrasing, because I probably wrote a couple of pages at the time. And as I wrote those words, I thought, I think I've written this before. And so I finished what I was writing, and then I flipped back through my journal, and I had written verbatim, not just something similar, but verbatim, those words a year before. And I was astonished. So then I sat there with my journal and I wrote myself a question. Do I want to be writing these words again in another year? Absolutely not. Do I want to be writing these words again in another month? No. Do I want to be writing these words again in another week? No. And so now what am I going to do about this? And so it was really a turning point for me. And that night, that very night, I took my husband out to a restaurant so that I was in neutral territory and told him that we needed a separation or we needed to get some really good marriage counseling. And he said, I'll move out tomorrow. Bam. As it turns out, the other thing I wrote in my journal was about how hard this was going to be because it was my second divorce and I had a baby and all those kind of things, right? I didn't have an income and there were so many reasons for me to stay in this marriage. But inside, I was dying. I felt like I was going insane. I was living with someone who gaslighted me every single day. And I won't go into more details, but I literally thought I was losing my mind. And I wasn't. And I knew that I had to get out. I had to escape. I was having nightmares of being imprisoned and trying to escape from aliens, from the mafia, from the Nazis, from monsters, and taking my children and taking them to safety. I mean, this was definitely, I was getting every message in the world that I was not in a healthy situation. But until I was writing in my journal and remembered that I'd written that same thing before and then looked it up and saw it was verbatim, it was like that was it. That was the tipping point, right? And then he moved out, and it ended up being what was best for all of us. And so I tell people my journal saved my life. And another thing I use my journal for is when I travel. I love to travel. And when you travel, especially when you travel out of the country, all kinds of things happen, right? Every day things happen. Magical things, interesting things, fun things. And I like to write things down and keep a record. So one time I went to Hawaii. I think it was the first time I went to Hawaii. I wrote down everything. I wrote down the different words that I learned in Hawaiian and the different adventures that we went on and so forth. And then when I went to Egypt, I kept a journal and wrote down all the things that I was experiencing on my trip there. And it's really fun to have that record to look back on, because even if you have a good memory, which I do not have, you aren't going to remember some things, right? And then when I went to Scotland, I actually took my computer, my laptop, because it's my baby and it travels with me everywhere now. And it was in my backpack, and I put my water bottle in there too. And somehow my water bottle leaked. Anyway, sadly, my computer didn't work when I got to Scotland, so I had to handwrite everything, which was fine. But it's great memories to look back on. So journaling is really a powerful tool. It's a tool for joy, to record the joyful things and to write down the memories that you might have of trips and family events and whatever is in your life. And it's also a tool to help you get through the daily grind of life. And for me, it's really helped me get out of unhealthy situations. Sometimes when I'm writing stuff down is when, it's one thing to have it in your head, but then when it comes out of your head and it kind of goes down through your throat, right, and down through your arms and into your fingers as you're writing, or if I'm doing it by voice, it's coming from my brain and down through my throat and comes out my mouth. I am hearing it when I'm talking, which is different than thinking it. And when I'm writing, I'm seeing it visually, which is different than thinking, right? And then I have these epiphanies as I'm writing or as I'm speaking, but really more as I'm writing. I'll have these epiphanies that are kind of life altering for me. And so it's a really powerful tool, super powerful. I have to say that when I'm going through a difficult time, I might write pages about my pain to get it out. When I'm going through more joyful times, sometimes I have to remind myself to write those things down, right? Because, it's like I'm happy, I'm having fun, it's a joyful time in my life or whatever. And so I also want to record those things. I want to have that balance. One thing about words that I believe strongly is they now with quantum technology, whatever you want to call it, they know that when you speak something, the vibration of your voice affects the vibration of all that there is. We are all in this great vibratory experience together, and it can resonate out into the stars. And yes, it might be like a tiny, unimaginable thing that happens there, but it happens. And so when we put words to what we're feeling, it has power. And that's why it's so important to use your words in a kind and loving way and to be conscious of what you say in the world, because your words are a vibration that affects everybody. And so it's important, if those words are painful, that you bring them out in a way that doesn't harm other people. And a journal is a great way to do that. Instead of yelling and screaming at my ex and saying, you're driving me crazy, you blah, 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 whatever, right? I journaled my feelings, and then I was able to just calmly say, I need this over with, right? And so my journal has been a healing tool. It's been an empowering tool to help me hone my intuition. And it's just been a great tool, and I highly recommend it. And I hope that you take me up on that recommendation, because it really can be a great help to your life, especially if you're on a healing path, right? And so I wanted to end my blog today by reading you something. I wrote it after my trip to Egypt, and it's kind of like a journal, but I did it in a creative way, and it actually was published because it was, and I don't know if people know that it was real, what I wrote, or if it was just a story, but I'm telling you, it was real, and it's called 30 Camels. Day 1. As I step through the open doorway of the airplane, I draw my first breath of Egyptian air. The unfamiliar sights and the soothing feel of the energy are completely foreign to me, but yet feel totally familiar, like I am home. I walk down the stairs and stand on the tarmac with my husband and wait for our luggage to be unloaded. Feeling weary, we walk, hauling our bags across the landing strip and into the airport, where we become part of a mass of humanity, all speaking in different tongues, all jostling each other and calling out for attention. And just a little segue here, the airport in Egypt didn't take us to a hallway where we walk down into the airport. It parks out in the middle of the airfield, and then you haul your bags and walk in. And that's a memory I might not have remembered if I hadn't written this down. Day 2. My husband is tired and cranky, choosing to nap while I leave for a tour to the healing temple of Isis. As I sit on the open boat with our tour group waiting to cross to the island temple, I watch a man walk to the water's edge. He takes off his shoes and socks, rolls up his sleeves and pant legs, and then carefully washes his hands and feet in the Great Nile River. That's another memory I probably wouldn't have retained if I hadn't written it down. Day 3. We tour the city of Cairo and stop at a jewelry store. A man offers to show me the workshop in the back where they make the jewelry. We walk to the back of the store where he leads me out a door and into an alley. As we walk, I feel like I'm either in an Indiana Jones movie or have stepped back in time. I'm fascinated by the sights of people cooking over open flames and stone stairs without railings attached to the side of buildings. The workshop is anticlimactic after the adventure of my alley walk. The room is small with a couple of benches cluttered with jewelry-making equipment and a few men with their heads bent working intently. When I return to the store, I've lost track of time. I'm greeted by my husband, who is in a panic and clearly upset at me. Day 5. There's a party on the train as we travel to Upper Egypt. The passenger car rocks, a drummer starts to play, and several of us begin to belly dance. A man offers my husband 30 camels to purchase me. He gets angry and goes to bed while I continue to dance. He barely tolerates my dance career, and I'm beginning to wish he'd stayed home. Day 8. Pharaoh's revenge hits my husband and several other members of our group as we cruise down the Nile on a ship. He jokes that he's sure he's dying. After he's back in bed, I leave him in our stateroom and head to lunch with my new friends. As I walk through the dining room, an Egyptian man calls out to me, "You're a dancer?" I smile and tell him yes. He then tells me he wants me to dance tonight. I have no idea he is an important man, but of course I agree to perform on a Nile cruise, which is a belly dancer's dream. Day 9. My husband is still under the weather as we stop at Esna to see some ruins. I'm late for the tour, and an Egyptian porter picks me up and lifts me over the railing so I can catch up with the group. This surprises me and makes me feel like a small child. No one has picked me up since infancy. I pass a herd of goats in the road as I rush to catch up with the group. Some belladie dresses catch my eye in a tiny open bazaar, perfect for my dance troupe back home. I stop to price them. The shopkeeper asks me if I'm his friend. I answer yes, and he grabs my boob. I'm shocked and automatically slap his hand and say that's not what friends are. He grabs my crotch. I slap his hand again and say that's not what friends are for. He gives me a puzzled look and asks me what friends are in my country. I tell him that friends talk to each other, and he says friends are no fun in your country. I'm not offended because I know that American women are perceived as loose in his culture, where most women cover their heads with a hijab. As I buy his dresses, another shopkeeper starts yelling at him and grabbing my left arm as he grabs my right arm and yells back. Almost instantly, the police show up and everyone is yelling in Arabic and no one is around who can translate. I have never felt more alone, and I never make it to the ruins. Day 11. Our cruise ship comes to an end at Luxor, and now I'm the one stricken down by what feels like the plague. This time my husband leaves me in bed and goes on a tour. I awaken to the gentle stroking of a maid's hand, and I look into her concerned eyes. Later I hear a lot of ruckus, and I drag myself to the balcony. I sit and watch as military trucks roll by announcing something with bullhorns, and men with machine guns sandbag the intersection. I can't understand a word and wonder if World War III is starting and if my friends were right when they worried about me going to the Middle East. When my husband returns, excited by his day without me, he tells me about his adventures and explains that the soldiers are preparing for a visiting dignitary. I'm glad to see him happy, but I also wonder if he had more fun because I wasn't there. Day 12. I am not well, but I'm back on my feet and have been asked to perform at the Winter Palace. As I am dancing to live musicians in the middle of Egypt, I'm filled with a sense of ecstasy. After my performance, I sit at the table with my husband, and a man approaches and asks me to come with him. Someone wants to meet me. My husband rolls his eyes as I walk away. In the back of the palace, I'm greeted by 3 7-foot-tall black men in pinstripe suits. They each shake my hand, their hands so large they could easily hold a basketball in just one. The translator tells me that they want to meet me in person and thank me for dancing for the King of Zaire and his entourage. How could I have ever imagined such a thing? Again, I'm asked to perform, this time in a more remote area outside of the city. I'm part of a bigger show, and after I dance, I sit with 3 travel friends and my husband, who is having fun pretending to have 4 wives. We watch as a famous folkloric group of Gwazi dancers perform. They wear large headpieces and their beaded fringe sways as they dance. The audience is enthusiastic and filling the air with zagarits, a trilling sound of celebration. One of the dancers reaches into her bosom, pulls out a tissue, and proceeds to blow her nose without missing a beat. After they finish, the audience quiets with expectation as a man in a turban enters with a big basket and flute. As he plays his flute, 2 cobras crawl out of the basket, and another turbaned man begins to dance with them, wrapping one around his cane and balancing it on his head. Day 14. Today we visit the Valley of the Kings. My husband seems down and lacks interest as we wait in the line under the hot sun to enter the tomb of King Tutankhamun, better known as King Tut. Just as we get close to the entrance, a group of French people push their way in front of us as if they own the world. Our tour leader chooses to ignore their rudeness, and the heat makes us cranky. When we make it into the tomb, we're treated to cooler air. Even better, we get to see the process the ancient Egyptians went through to build a tomb for their kings. Since Tut died so young, the tomb is unfinished. It is in varying degrees of completion, from sketches on the walls to partially painted figures to the finished room containing his sarcophagus, where the paintings are brilliant, as if they'd been completed yesterday. Day 16. We return to Cairo and visit a shop filled with costuming. My husband sits and drinks tea while I try on a caftan. The shopkeeper takes me behind a piece of canvas to the dressing room. I try the caftan on over my clothes, and when I come out, the shopkeeper comes close and wraps a scarf around my head while poking me with his erection, obviously wearing no underwear under his own caftan. This time I am offended and mortified. I quickly find my husband and insist on leaving, but he wants to take a picture of me with the shopkeeper. I am blushing. He has no sense of my panic, and I wonder how he can't see my distress. Is there something in that tea, or are we really that disconnected? When I tell him about it later, he thinks it's funny. Who is this man? Day 17. We ride camels to the pyramids. I'm disappointed to hear that mine is named Michael Jackson. As we enter the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza, I'm struck by how different it is than any other structure we've seen. Even the stone it's built from is different, and I can't help but wonder if it's true that the pyramids are really portals built by an alien race. All the tombs and temples are completely covered with carved paintings of gods and goddesses. This stone is harder and completely smooth and polished, and the precision of the construction and the perfect true north alignment is a modern mystery. We climb up a narrow tunnel and come out into what is believed to be a burial chamber of an ancient pharaoh. Once again, I am lifted like a child by an Egyptian man into a large stone box said to be a sarcophagus. I don't believe it's a coffin. As I stand in it, I can feel something that I can only describe as an electrical pulse, almost like a buzzing, and it gives me goosebumps. I'm sure I'm in a vortex or portal. My husband thinks I'm nuts. Last day. Today is our last day in Egypt, and we have a choice: lunch with an Egyptian family or riding horses. I choose the horses. And by now it's no surprise that my husband chooses the lunch option. I'm assigned to a white Arabian stallion, and as he begins to run through the Sahara, I feel wild. The desert air is in my face, my hair is flowing behind me, and I've never felt so free. Present day. My ex-husband has blown up the photo of me and the horny shopkeeper, and it hangs on his living room wall. My most mortifying moment in Egypt is his best memory. I am filled with relief that I am really free at last. So you might wonder about my journal where I felt trapped. Yes, that was the relationship. He went to Egypt with me, and you can see that by writing in my journal, I captured not only the memories that I gained during my tour of this spectacular country that I had looked forward to touring since I was the age of 3. It also captured my emotions and my feelings. So, anyway, I thought it would be fun to share that with you. And I hope that you take me up on my suggestion of starting a journal. You can buy something beautiful in a gift shop. You can just write on scratch paper. You can just have a dollar notebook from the dollar store. It doesn't matter. Just start getting your words out onto paper, bringing them into the light. And another thing, if you don't want to keep them, if it's things that you don't want to keep, that's just getting your emotions out onto paper, you can do a burning ritual and just burn them and release them into the universe to be recycled into love and light. I love you all so much, and I hope that this was helpful today, and blessings to each of you. Thank you for joining me today. My mission is to help bring back the balance of the divine feminine to spirituality. Please share my podcast with anyone who might be interested in the divine feminine and personal empowerment. And if you'd like to connect with me further, feel free to reach out. You can find me at Mesdeline.com, Divine Feminine Rising with Mesdeline.com, Mesdeline Bliss, or Mesdeline on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And also, please join my mailing list if you'd like to receive my newsletter. Allow the light of your love to shine. Be the change. Lead the way. And always remember, your light of love is a needed gift to the world that only you can give. Music on the show is by the wonderful Desert Wind, my favorite multicultural group known for their peace concerts.